Brendan D. Simone. I'm an executive committee member of the Round Hill Association. I'm happy to serve as your host and moderator for the Greenwich Selectmen's debate for the November election. I want to thank the organizers of this evening's event, co-chairs Lee Retzler and Jeff Vasey. The Round Hill Association was founded in 1942 to preserve and enhance the quality of life in our vicinity and in the town as a whole. The RHA encompasses some 1,100 diverse households in our area. We host a variety of social and political events throughout the year to bring people together. In addition to candidates forums like this, we host fun events for families and children. Next weekend, we're hosting our first ever Qigong exercise class at the Greenwich Audubon Barn. This past May, we had our RHA Night Out cocktail party, where nearly 200 Round Hill neighbors came out to mingle, listen to live music, and hang out at the magnificent Foundation House property. In fact, the Round Hill Association was instrumental in saving Foundation House from development 3 years ago, when we came together to save off a developer who wanted to turn it into multifamily housing, which would have changed the nature of our neighborhood forever. As an organization, we keep an eye on local issues that affect our community. We're currently watching the proposed changes at the Westchester County Airport. Additionally, we're very closely watching the proposed developments in Northwest Greenwich, especially how they may impact traffic and safety in our neighborhoods. Like many neighbors around town, we're very concerned about cars using our neighborhoods as cut-throughs, using traffic apps like Waze and Google Maps. They speed through curvy, hilly, and narrow roads, which were never built for the sheer volume of cars we see today. Recently, we've teamed up with other local Greenwich neighborhood associations to share knowledge and bring together strengths and numbers of residents with similar interests. Our candidates are here tonight to share their perspectives, ideas, and plans for the future of Greenwich. It's an opportunity for us to listen, learn, and make an informed choice on Election Day. The process is a cornerstone of our democratic society. Thank you all for joining us. We extend our gratitude to our candidates for participating and sharing their insights with us tonight. Their dedication to public service is commendable, and we appreciate their commitment to our community. This evening, let us listen with open minds, a commitment to civil discourse, and a shared goal of better understanding. About the evening, each candidate will have 2.5 minutes for opening and closing statements. In between, we'll ask a variety of questions that have been submitted to us from residents and members of the Round Hill Association. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer each of the questions. I will randomly pull the name out of a hat down below here to decide the order each time. The questions have been edited for conciseness and fairness by 3 members of our board, 1 Democrat, 1 Republican, and our unaffiliated board president. If there's time at the end, we'll open it up to audience questions. RHA board members will be around to collect the cards if you want to write a question, and we'll answer them at the end. I'll start with introducing the candidates. I'd like to introduce Republican First Selectman Fred Camillo, Republican Selectwoman Lauren Rabin, Democratic Selectwoman Janet Stone McGuigan, Democratic candidate for First Selectwoman Laura Erickson. First question.
Are we doing opening statement?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Sorry, opening statements. First person opening statement is Fred Camillo.
Okay, thank you, Brenda. It's good to see everybody here tonight. Thank you, Laura. I'm making a mess up here. What an honor it's been the last 4 years to serve as first selectman of my hometown that I grew up in, through good times and some challenging ones. And it wasn't just 100-year pandemics and 500-year floods. We faced some pretty challenging times when we came in December of 2019. We were looking at 28 vacancies on Greenwich Avenue. We were looking at a depressed real estate market, especially back in the backcountry here. And we were looking at facing a $5 million deficit with municipal solid waste and recycling. And within a year, we almost closed that completely, that deficit. The real estate market is booming. And on the avenue, we're down to 1 vacancy. The businesses are doing well, the restaurants are thriving. We've done that with lots of policies. We've made it very vibrant down there with lots of initiatives, including outdoor dining. But we've also focused on environmental protection. We put in place a sustainability committee, an energy advisory management committee. We've done an active transportation task force. We did a public-private partnership to get 80 acres in the backcountry here of open space. We've added textiles and food scraps to our recycling list. We've also looked at public-private partnerships to acquire the 80 acres in the backcountry, to push long-standing projects over the finish line, like the Old Greenwich Civic Center and GEM Station 4. We've looked at pedestrian safety. We've added new sidewalks, improved intersections, and improved crosswalks. We've looked at public safety. We focused on that as I did in Hartford. And together with the Greenwich Police Department, the Fire Department, Joe Lasello of our Emergency Operations Center, and GEM, we've made Greenwich the safest town, one of the safest towns in the country and the safest town in Connecticut. And we've done so often at a deficit for the 4 years here. But despite all that, despite all #1 rankings that we have to keep our eye on the ball. So again, I always quote Vince Lombardi, you shoot for perfection, you're never going to attain it, but along the way, you catch excellence. And that's why we all do what we do here. Greenwich is the premier place to live, work, raise a family, and retire. But we have to keep, it's not a perfect place, right? There is not a perfect place on earth, so that's why we do what we do. And we get there because of people like you all who give of your time and your talent. So we couldn't do it without you, so we thank you very much. God bless, and I look forward to the debate.
Thank you, Fred. Up next, Lauren.
Oh, great. Good evening, everyone, and thank you to the Round Hill Association for hosting this forum. I am honored to serve our community with my classmate, my running mate, my teammate, Fred Camillo, Mr. 24/7. And make no mistake, the role of first selectman, select woman, select person is a 24/7 job. And our goal is simple. We want to keep Greenwich the most desirable town to live in, raise a family, work, play, and I always say this, my favorite word, stay. And that includes the backcountry. And the role of the selectmen on the 3-person board of selectmen is unique. Its primary responsibilities being the adoption of ordinances, nominations to boards, commissions, and committees, ombuds to citizens in government, settlement of claims, and our traffic authority. And in the role of ombudsman, we deal with the broadest array of issues facing our residents and businesses: public safety, town infrastructure, affordable housing, cultural institutions, health services, our local economy, public school education, and the environment. And experience and public trust matter. And I want to offer my unique experience to continue to serve the town. I serve as the liaison to the Selectmen's Nomination Advisory Committee, the Commission on Aging, the Affordable Housing Trust Board, the Western Council of Governments, the GHS Building Committee, the Central Middle School Building Committee, and I am committed to working with everyone working on all issues facing our town. I'm a team player, and I'll be just as effective regardless of the makeup of the next Board of Selectmen. Greenwich is a unique and special place. I was raised here, I raised my children here with my husband, and as your select woman, I dedicate myself to making our town work better for all of us. Challenges to meet will always require leadership, experience, hard work, and a commitment to civil discourse. I have demonstrated these qualities throughout my time serving our community in Cub Scouts, PTA, Alliance for Education, GYFL, the RTM, the Board of Human Services, the Board of Education, and now the Board of Selectmen. And I look forward to earning your trust and support for another 2 years.
Up next, Laura.
This is so suspenseful. Thank you. Thank you to the Round Hill Neighborhood Association, and thank you to the audience for coming out tonight. Thank you to my fellow candidates. We have less than 2 weeks to go. The good news is the signs will be gone by the night of Election Day. So I want to introduce myself. Some of you know me, but many of you may not. I'm a 30-year resident of Greenwich. My husband and I moved here in 1993. I'm from New Hampshire, and he's from South Dakota. So when we arrived here, we thought, wow, this is like Shangri-La. And we've been really privileged and happy to raise our 3 children here, all of whom have gone through Greenwich Public Schools, K through 12. I was a parent for 17 years, consecutive years. It's a lot of Halloween parties. I care deeply about this community. In addition to being a Greenwich Public School parent, I've served on the RTM for 13 years. I was on the Board of Education for 4 years. I served as chair through 3 superintendents. I served with Lauren on the Board of Ed. I'm currently on the BET. I'm in my 4th year on the BET, serving on the Budget Committee. And while things are good in Greenwich, we can do better. I feel like we have lurched from crisis to crisis, some of which is out of our control. The pandemic certainly was a once-in-a-100-year event. But many of the things that we faced, we can do better if we plan for our town infrastructure, our school infrastructure. My priority is public safety. I think there are things we can do. I am concerned about when we took officers off Greenwich Avenue, we did not have a plan in place to address some of the conditions that our people are facing there. Pedestrians have the right of way, drivers get confused, pedestrians get confused. We need to figure out something so people don't get hurt. Priority is also local control. We've all experienced overdevelopment, resulting issues of traffic, congestion, flooding. Some of this is private development, but because we haven't met our 830G target, a 30-year-old law, developers are skirting the rules. So we really need to take action to address this, to have control of our own destiny. The elections are about choice. I think we're all deeply committed to this community, and I thank you for the opportunity.
Opening statement is.
I was going to say, you don't have to draw. So thank you to everyone who organized and is watching tonight's debate. I am delighted to be here. One of my greatest pleasures as a select person is serving as the co-chair of the Greenwich Sustainability Committee. Backcountry, with its open space and natural beauty, in large part puts the green in Greenwich. And as the proud parent of 2 Eagle Scouts, I have spent countless hours at Seton and Audubon, 2 of the town's green gems. So it should come as no surprise to anyone that if re-elected, I would work hard to protect our open spaces. You'll find this on my list of priorities, along with greater transparency, public engagement, and more public discourse. I came to this office with professional experience as an environmental policy analyst and mediator, and leadership roles in the PTA Council, Junior League, and League of Women Voters, all very respected, nonpartisan non-profits in town. I am not a natural politician, but I am a natural servant leader. If the past is predictive, less than half of our registered voters in town will vote on November 7th. So please do your research and vote. And let me help you with this. If elected, my running mate, Laura Erickson, and I will be planners and savers with help from our Democratic BET team. None of us want high rises or high tax increases. We all share a vision to preserve our quality of life, prioritize our community's needs, and plan for the future. So thank you for your time tonight, and I look forward to a good debate.
Thank you. Each question you'll have 1 minute and 30 seconds, 90 seconds to answer. The first question goes to Janet Stone-McQuiggan. Janet, if you are elected, what will your top priority be?
Oh gosh, that's hard. At our last debate, I only gave one, and this time I have a list. So what I would start with is greater transparency and more public discourse. We need to uphold our community's inclusive values. We need to do a better job listening to our community. And the community is saying, put public safety first. Support our schools and get our building projects done. Address climate change and flooding. And I know we have our marching orders. I can keep going since I still have some time. Laura and I, we want safe schools, safe roads, secure schools, sensible development, and sound waters. We will support a climate resiliency plan, energy management plan, and do everything in our power to support our school building committees. We will be thoughtful about public engagement and make our decision process transparent. But most importantly, we will serve the needs of our youngest and oldest residents and everyone in between at every income level. We will uphold the inclusive values of this community.
Thank you. Same question. If you're elected, what will your top priority be? Lauren?
Thanks for the question, and like in our previous debate, I mentioned the thing that plagues us all, but I hear from everyone, is the traffic in town and the way that people drive. We need to do a better job of maybe educating people, like roundabouts, that the pedestrians have the right of way. We need more enforcement so that folks that are speeding or not stopping at stop signs or running through red lights have perhaps a disincentive to do so if there was greater enforcement. The other thing that I think a lot about is the ability to age in place. So that is affordability, that is the services that we offer our seniors in town. I was talking to some people before the debate started. 20% of our population is over the age of 65. We actually have more seniors than school-age children in town. So what are we doing to make sure that they can age in place, stay in the town that they raised their families in? Nathaniel Witherall is very important to me. It's very important to many in the community. The senior center renovation is important to me. It's important to many in the community. The parking on Greenwich Avenue, everyone complains about that, and that's connected to the senior center as well. How can our seniors who are driving get to a place that is for them? Thank you, flashing light.
Thank you, Lauren. And question for elected, what will your top priority is for Laura?
So my top priority is public safety. I believe we need to give our police and our fire chiefs the equipment that they ask for when they come before the budget committee, rather than denying or delaying their requests. And in this particular district, public safety for me means fire coverage. I've been on the RTM, I joined in 1999, and we started talking about the need for a fire station in the northwest sector of town over 20 years ago. There have been many fire studies, but the latest study is the Matrix study. It was put together late 2020. We had a public hearing in early 2021 to listen to residents. And we need to act. It's not just a Northwest fire issue. Your response times ideally would be under 10 minutes. That doesn't always happen. It's a town-wide issue, because when there's a fire in this section of town, everything shifts, and that leaves other areas exposed. We have a documented study that says we need to do something. Round Hill Volunteer Fire Department, which I happily supported on the budget committee. The town is contributing $1 million towards that effort. Representative Steve Meskers secured a $500,000 grant for that effort. We could put career firefighters along with the volunteer firefighters, but the study says we still need probably an additional firehouse. So we need to really start taking this very seriously and take action. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Re-elected, what will your top?
Continuing to make Greenwich the safest town in Connecticut with the policies we've already put in place. Greenwich Avenue was mentioned. We took 2 officers that were directed traffic for 8 hours a day when studies told us that the most pedestrian traffic was after 4 o'clock. And we now have 3 times the amount of officers there. 4 on bikes that are mobile and they're longer, 2 undercover, and a patrol car there. And we've apprehended every single person that has committed a crime there. Also working with stakeholders and Greenwich communities to get us to that 10% affordable rate of the 830G mandate. We're up to almost 5.8% now from a little over 5.2 a few years ago. We have plans to get us up to 7% in the next few years. Continuing to work on flooding. If you go through Pembroke, you see we're millions of dollars that we're putting in there. On the Pembroke Park side of it, and also work with the federal government, which a $35 million grant was secured for the Byron River, which has been going on since the flood of 1955, when houses are floating down the river there. So we're looking at all these things that have been long-standing problems, but we're also looking at misused assets or underused assets, like the $100 million Havemeyer building, which has fallen into disrepair. We put together a committee headed by Andy Deuce, formerly of the BET, who's doing a tremendous job. We're now farther along there than we've ever been before, and we're looking forward to that in the next couple of years for that being returned to the people.
Great, thank you. Next question. While we greatly appreciate the efforts of our volunteers, Round Hill is the only area in town which does not have professional firefighters to support their efforts. Do you feel that backcountry is adequately protected by an all-volunteer fire company? Why or why not? If you do not think so, what actions would you take to correct this? First, Lauren.
Darn. So I know that there are other communities that are actually all volunteer, so I would not say that a volunteer fireman is any better or worse than a career firefighter. I think the community has a perception that career, might mean better. So if it meant shifting our existing force so that there were more career firemen at Round Hill, I'm completely supportive of that. I don't know that that the needs aren't being met, but if that's the case, I would support just looking at all of our coverage holistically and determining, what might be the best, like looking at coverage across the town holistically.
Thank you. Up next. Jen.
So my husband, who is in the front row, would say this is an and, not or. We need volunteers and professionals, there's just no question. Public safety just needs to be paramount. We know that backcountry needs better fire coverage. We know that it needs a Northwest firehouse. Fires don't respect work shifts, and we know that volunteers can only cover certain hours of the day. Professionals can supplement that. So I don't see the question as being one or the other. But and how do we support all of them? We need to regularly replace our equipment. We know that the town is behind its replacement schedule because the Republicans on the BET have removed these items from the last two budgets. There was a 1-week window recently that Greenwich had to rely on coverage from neighboring towns because we didn't have a functioning ladder truck. We need to regularly check and maintain the dry hydrants in backcountry. And this question extends to other policy areas. We need more workforce housing so that firefighters who want to live in Greenwich can.
Thank you. Laura.
So the Round Hill Volunteer Fire Department, as well as other volunteer companies in town, play a crucial role in our fire coverage, and we deeply respect the work that they do. Many of our volunteer firefighters actually go on to become career firefighters, but we do need a comprehensive approach. Round Hill helps us with the water, and we have a fire in the backcountry, which is really important. But again, the response times are an issue. We need ladder trucks. We've had fires in the backcountry where homes have burned to the ground. We had a recent fire at Sherwood Avenue. I don't know the exact time for the response time, but it needs to be an actionable plan to address the issues. One of the ladder trucks that we're hiring, or that we're buying, that came to us at a cost of $1.4 million. After a year's delay, it was $1.7 million. Now it's $2.2 million. We just did an interim for it. When asked, the fire assistant chief said, well, partly what we're doing is we're adding more ladders because in the backcountry, we can't always get the truck with the aerial ladder. We need different types of ladders to access. But everyone needs to, I hope, have fire suppression in their home. But we really do need to address this problem holistically. We love our volunteers, but we need both.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I know this sometimes gets controversial over the years, but I can tell you, sitting here as the fire commissioner, who works well with the paid guys, and it was someone who was honored to select Joe McHugh as our chief, and also as somebody who's a volunteer associated with the Costco Volunteer Fire Police Patrol, and working closely with Round Hill and David Chass. When we had this agreement for the 50-50, $1 million apiece for the for the fire department here and the station came into being. A lot has happened since then, and unfortunately, prices have gone up. So the town will be kicking in a lot more money than that 50%, but I'm supportive of that. Just so you know, Greenwich, because we're a combination department with volunteers and professional, we have the highest rating you could have in fire protection for anybody that has a combination department. The only thing that there's a higher level of you could attain, but you'd have to be a real professional. So we're doing as best as we can there, but also I visited a lot of neighboring towns and spoke to people there and chiefs there about response times and having mutual aid agreements. And some work, some won't work. Portchester just went to an all-volunteer. The same thing up just north of our border here, but I did try over there. But we're still looking at lots of things. But again, as good as we are, we always strive to be much better.
Thank you, Fred. Reminder, if you have questions, if you're wanting to submit them to Mark Pruder, who will be in the back row. Next question, we touched on this a little bit already, but apps like Google Maps and Waze have increased traffic on our road, not meant for a large volume of cars, making it unsafe for pedestrians and bikers in all parts of town. What specific measures would you take to combat this phenomenon and prevent drivers from using our winding roads as cut-throughs? Up first. Laura.
So this is a problem in every community, I think. Technology has its advantages, but its disadvantages. I always joke that some of these reroutes are actually long cuts, not shortcuts. But when there is traffic diverted to our local roads, which are not meant for that type of traffic and that congestion, with people who are unfamiliar with the windy roads, the lack of sidewalks, lack of shoulders, it's a serious pedestrian safety issue. And frankly, I don't know what we can do about the technological aspects of it. I don't think Google Maps or Apple Maps or Waze is going to agree to say this is a local road only situation, but I do think there are things we can do to make our roads safer for our pedestrians and our bicyclists, as well as the drivers of our cars. Some of it's on us. I have to be honest, we all have to look in the mirror and say, slow down. We can't blame all of this on people getting off the Merritt for a quick jog around Northwest Greenwich to get back on. A lot of the driving in our community is by the residents. So there's much we need to do, but I think it does start with a behavior change, and that is always difficult, but I think that's part of it.
Thank you, Laura. Up next. Fred.
Yes, this question came up right before the pandemic, and I met with certain residents in the Port Check Road, Round Hill areas several times. We did reach out to the state, and my opponent is right on that. The state said there was really nothing they could do about rerouting people, and certainly Google would be, was not going to be ready to do that either. But we also looked at what can we do to change our patterns, and so I've reached out to Brunswick, reached out to them again this week, spoke with Tom Phillip, and the good news is he said that they keep reminding the kids and the parents, because of the warnings and concerns that came from the residents, to be careful when they're driving and try to be very careful when they're going through neighborhoods. Also, he told me that the pre-K is going to be moved to the Lake Avenue campus. So that should take about 80 cars off the road around this area, cutting through in the northwest corner to King Street, which he relayed actually late this morning. But it's patterns, and just on our part, we have to just keep reminding people to drive safely. There are almost 60,000 cars now, whereas, and 50 years ago, there was only 14,000 registered cars and almost the same amount of people. So it's a very different time, and when you got these things here, it makes it a lot worse. So we have to keep drilling into people's heads, and a lot of it is on us. And so, but we'll continue to work with others to see what we can do.
Thanks, Fred. Up next, Jen.
So thank you for this question. Most of the news stories about traffic in town focus on the central business district, but traffic is an issue even if you call it backcountry. Waze is known to divert traffic from the Merritt Parkway, and residents have expressed concerns about speeding and distracted drivers. I just have to point out, I prepared for this question 2 years ago, and not a lot has changed. The Republicans on the BET removed a budget item for electronic signs that the town could have used to warn reckless drivers about. We're talking a couple of tens of thousands of dollars, a bargain at twice the price. Public safety should be a priority and not something that we're nickeling and diming.
Thank you. Lauren.
So first I'll address technology. We have so many smart people. I wonder if there is some app that somebody can think of that would help address what's a local road. I think about it too for commercial vehicles. So I live off of King Street, and I can't tell you how many times trucks have tried to go under the overpass and get stuck because technology is routing them on the Hutch Merritt when they shouldn't be. I talked about traffic and driving in my first answer about priorities. I think some of it, again, is enforcement. I think some of it is better signage. Maybe there's things that we could do with the roadways. I know that speed bumps aren't something that is applicable for everywhere, but maybe speed tables, which is a much longer, wider surface. And I think it's our behavior. We are in a rush. Everybody has someplace to go. Fred's right. We have 53,000 cars registered to 63,000 residents, and not everybody's capable of driving. We need other modes of transportation, carpooling, better, sidewalks, better roads for bicyclists. But even walking and riding a bike isn't safe everywhere. I would love to see a lot more education and just reminders of you have to stop for 3 seconds. That's the rule. You have to be 3 seconds behind the person who's in front of you, no matter what the speed limit is. I think we are lifelong learners, and driving is one of those things to continue an education on.
Thank you. Next question. This one's going to Laura. Where in Greenwich do you see opportunities to install solar panels or leverage other forms of renewable energy on municipal buildings or public lands? Would such installations have the advantage of reducing municipal expenses, and how would you see that play out?
So I think we all need to face reality that we are going to be weaning ourselves off of reliance on fossil fuels, and the green revolution is coming our way. I think the town should be a leader in this regard. There are so many structures that we should be looking at solar panels for. Right now, on Central Middle School, they have included $3 million to install solar arrays on that building. They decided to purchase that as a building committee so they can reap the benefits. There is another way to do it, to save the $3 million up front and enter into a power purchase agreement. You still are green, but you don't get as many economic benefits, but it is of benefit. We looked on the BET of putting a solar array in the parking lot across from the Boys and Girls Club. We ultimately paused that because we needed that temporary, well, it was temporary, it's become almost a permanent building now for the Boys and Girls Club to use during their renovation. But there are areas in town, Town Hall would be one of them, that we should look at solar arrays, because over time it will pay for itself. The payback analysis is very clear. So we need to look at not the short-sighted decision, but the long-sighted decision. What's the cost over time? It's coming, and we should deploy those measures. It's also, the cost is coming down, much cheaper than it was when it first started.
Thank you. Where in Greenwich do you see opportunities to install solar panels or leverage other forms of renewable energy on municipal buildings or public lands? Would such installations have the advantage of reducing municipal expenses, and how would you see that play out? To Janet.
Thank you. So I love this question. I am the liaison to the Energy Management Advisory Committee. This is something that we talk about very, very regularly. Absolutely. All of our schools, our libraries, our civic centers, they would all be great locations to put solar arrays on. And we don't, as a town, have to own the systems necessarily. We can lease the systems out so that operations and maintenance is not a burden to our town staff. Like I said, the Energy Management Advisory Committee, it's an impressive committee. It has a wealth of experience and expertise. unfortunately, we haven't followed through on the committee's recommendations. We didn't follow their recommendations from last year's annual report. This annual report is due any day now. I hope that we do a better job this time around. But, you know, that said, there's something called virtual net metering. So we don't actually even have to have solar arrays on our own buildings. And we're leaving money on the table. If we, as a town, entered into these agreements, we could make money. I have to give a shout out, by the way. So Round Hill Community Church has solar arrays. Fantastic. My understanding is that they will pay back. Initially, I think the estimate was 7 years, and now it's coming shorter and shorter. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Lauren.
Yes, we have a lot of municipal buildings, schools, you know, town hall, our libraries, our civic centers. So there's a lot of opportunity with our town buildings for solar arrays. I'm on the Central Middle School Building Committee and as part of, not a voting member, I'm the liaison, but part of the decision on what to do to get to net zero. There is, you know, the initial costs and the payback over time, totally support that. And also looking at some of our parking lots and making the sort of canopy type solar systems in parking lots. I think that that's a good idea, especially the one across from Island Beach. And then just with energy in general, something I keep talking about, and it hits back to traffic, is how many kids can take the school bus to school. We can go for electric school buses, we can get more electric charging stations, but we have not changed the mileage that students need to live far from in order to qualify for a bus. So for the high school, it's 2 miles. It's been 2 miles for over 40 years. And most kids would not walk 2 miles to school. So if we can get more kids on the bus, that could help save some energy.
Thank you. Last question.
4 years ago, when I stood before you in other venues, I pledged to put together an energy management advisory committee and a sustainability committee. And we've done that. And we've made some strides. But I agree, I think I get a little frustrated sometimes. We're not where I would like us to be, but we have done, you know, we've got some charging stations, we've got our first electric vehicle. I did work with Jay Domisek at Fleet, and I asked, you know, could we maybe start looking at our plows and those trucks? And he said, technology's not there yet, because you know, with doing all of these things and charging things up, it's the technology not there. But as far as solar goes, certainly I agree that we could be doing a little bit more. I reached out to Peter Schweinfurth at the EMAC, Energy Management, the other day, and talked about maybe looking at the transfer station. You know, we're looking to, it's been going on for 40 years, talk of redoing that transfer station, but former Mayor Boughton came down from the state and said that there's some money available. We're still talking to him about that, but that would be part of that. Even if we redo it, part of that would not be touched, and that would be an area where you could put some panels there, and other towns have done that. So there are some blueprints out there, and I would like to see that move a little bit quicker. Going forward, that you know, we're not going to get, most towns are struggling with this, but Greenwich, I think, for a while was not where it should be. So everything's in place to move it forward, but we just have to do it.
Got it, thank you. Next question. First up will be Janet's. Question is, until 10% of our housing is deemed affordable by the state definition, State Law 830G exempts most builders from adhering to Greenwich regulations. How do we address the need for housing a diverse population without resorting to overdevelopment?
Thank you. Good question. So let's just say it up front. We all want local control. This is not a wedge issue. Our state delegation has done a great job defending Greenwich's interests in Hartford, but we need to do more than fight Hartford on this. We need to make some progress. Laura and I strongly believe that, consistent with the Plan of Conservation and Development, in order to thrive, Greenwich needs more affordable, moderate, and workforce housing. We could do this by leveraging the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and providing tax incentives to landlords. We need to do more to educate homeowners about the option of creating accessory dwelling units on their properties. This is simply not an issue that the market is going to organically address without strong support from our town's leaders.
Thank you. Lauren.
Thank you. So I think the question was without additional development. We have many units that could be counted as affordable if we make some improvements to them. So I think that's a way of investing in existing dwellings so that they do count for that affordable. They are naturally affordable, but they don't count because they haven't had renovations since I think it's somewhere in the 90s, which is very interesting to me because there's a lot of very expensive homes that were built before the 90s. So it's an interesting wrinkle in the law, I think. I am the Board of Selectmen liaison to the Affordable Housing Trust. So how can we do development in place and more conversion rather than brand new development? I know that there's conversations about Greenwich Woods on King Street. There's the, it was I guess the American Can building over by Westchester County Airport. So if we can take existing structures and renovate them and make them more affordable units, I think that's the way. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund does do very almost low or no interest loans to developers so that they are incented to put in more affordable units that count. And affordable, I know people say workforce housing, but affordable is a much lower income level than workforce housing in general. Most of our workforce would not qualify for affordable housing.
Thank you. Next, Laura.
So I think we all value our neighborhoods and the character of our town, and what we're seeing is really a lot of overdevelopment. It's leading to traffic, it's leading to congestion, it's destroying the way we appreciate our homes, and we need to do something about it. There's no question about it. Janet is absolutely right. This is a core community value. This is not a wedge issue. We have tools at our disposal to take action that will provide our state delegation evidence and data to push back against some of these onerous laws that are being proposed, which our state delegation has voted against. The first tool, I believe, is the Greenwich Communities, formerly known as the Greenwich Housing Authority. There's a lot of good work being done over there. We also have the accessory dwelling units, as Janet mentioned. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund is relatively new. It's modeled on our neighboring city of Stamford. We funded it with federal ARPA money. We got $1.1 million allocated to this. Only $650,000 is available right now. The other $450,000 was conditioned. I don't know why it was conditioned because it's federal money, but we're trying to leverage private money. For the American Can property, that means they can pay a fee in lieu of those developments. So it goes from $458 to something like $250. That's a significant reduction. That would add $12 million to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. And the Greenwich Woods is 215 units. That's a lot more traffic on King Street.
Thank you. Next up again is Fred.
Thank you. Batting cleanup. As first selectman and as also a board member of Connecticut Council of Municipalities and as the vice chair of the land use committee that deals with land use, I've been an advocate for local control. I've worked with stakeholders all over the state. Greenwich Communities, we're on speed dial every single day. Since we've come into office, we've pushed that number up to 5.8%. 830G is a terrible, terrible law. It has not worked at all. It gives developers a hammer and circumvents local control. If you like Armstrong Court, for example, we had lots of units there. They were affordable, but they were never counted. Why? Because the law says if you haven't put $25,000 into a unit in the last 32 years, it's not going to be counted. What San Romeo and the housing commissioners have done there is they made it beautiful for those residents, but they're all being counted now, 100%. 830G gives you a percentage. Most of that is going to be market rate, so it's like a dog chasing its tail. You're never going to get there with 830G. And there's a lot of other bills that are horrible. The fair share, which was watered down, was passed. It was watered down, but it's on the books. And having been in Hartford, I can tell you, once they're on the books, they're going to keep bringing it back. So we just have to keep showing Hartford that we're getting it done. But we have some ideas that you'll be hearing about that will get us up to 7% and beyond that if we Hunter's giving me but we're going to get there.
Got it. Thank you, Fred. Next question, and this will go to Laura. People move to Greenwich for good schools and low taxes. Can we have both?
Yes, the answer is yes. Greenwich is one of the lowest mill rates in the state, second only to a small town in the northwest corner of Connecticut, and we can have both. Good schools are a core community value. We need to fund our schools, we need to fund our teachers, we need to fund physical infrastructure that meets the needs of our students. For taxes, our mill rate is about 11.4 to the dollar, or per thousand, 11.4 per thousand. And that's the same rate we had in 2018. The way it used to work on the BET is that Republicans and Democrats used to work together to acknowledge our 5 and our 10-year capital plan needs, and we used to put a little money in the capital tax levy, which is the amount that you're taxed for our capital, to address those future needs. We've lost that discipline on the BET, sadly, during my tenure, and the way to get all these projects done is to plan for them so you can execute them and get them done. Every time we delay a project, it ends up costing you, the taxpayers, more money. So it also increases the risk. We have deteriorating assets. We've seen evidence of structure failure. This is catastrophic risk, which as being a member of the BET, we're in charge of the finances of the town. This is not responsible financial stewardship. Everything is a balance. We can do both.
Thank you. People move to Greenwich for good schools and low taxes. Can we have both? This is Fred.
Yes, they moved to Greenwich for lots of reasons, and I think Lauren and I are the two people who went through public school here, so we value it so much. I am a former high school history teacher, and absolutely, I think there's agreement all around up here on this one. We absolutely can do that. We have now, I think for the first time in memory, we have 4 building committees at one time going. And these schools will get funded. I know there's been some back and forth, at least on one of them, maybe 2 sometimes, but we're in strong support of getting them done. Again, having seen a lot of our schools, especially the middle schools, were built, 60, 65 years ago, some of them. Construction is not that great, but if you look at our schools like OG and Coscob, the bones are great there, and Riverside School. So, and the facade, people love the way they look. It fits into our community. And that's what really one of the things about Greenwich, and they're walking communities. People love them. And so, once we lose that, obviously we lose a big part of who we are. So I think there's broad agreement here on that. They're not mutually exclusive at all. So we're in agreement.
Gender.
So absolutely, we can have both. So I have an engineering degree. I can claim to be good with numbers. But if you look at our BET slate, candidate slate, they are beyond impressive. And I would be a team player with them. And they have told me that we can meet our backlog of capital needs, specifically our schools, without increasing our mill rate, because it's the operating budget that drives our mill rate and not our capital budget. We can model our capital financing and still maintain the town's AAA rating. But I would anyway say that the mill rate should not be driving our annual budget discussion. It's our community's needs and what it would take to finance those needs. That's what should be driving the discussion. And when we say that we don't want to saddle our children with debt, we should also consider that it's not fair to ask our seniors to fund projects today whose benefits would hopefully extend decades, if not a century more into the future. I can keep going on and on, but I'll stop there.
Thank you. Last is Laura.
We do have both. We've had both for quite some time. We do have low taxes and great schools. Our school teachers are paid some of the highest in the state between salary and benefits. And then with respect to infrastructure, we've built schools, Hamilton Avenue, Glenville, Coscob, New Lab. We, as Fred said, we have 4 building committees going on simultaneously. When Laura and I were on the Board of Ed, we had a 15-year capital plan for the schools. Laura might recall, I wanted Central first, but the architect at the time convinced us that doing our elementary schools might be the most cost-effective for the town because we would save on things like engineering and architecture. So we can have both, we just need to plan it out because it's also a capacity. There's a lot that goes into building schools and it has to be factored into the timing of creating all of this new improved infrastructure for our students. We are funding the highest capital to date for the schools. So we do have both.
Thank you. Next question, and first up is Janet. Many Greenwich residents have lived here for decades, having grown up here. How can we balance the interests of newcomers who may want to change things up while accommodating longtime residents who may be resistant to change?
Oh my goodness. Well, I'll just laugh. My husband and I, we're one of these mixed marriages. My husband was born at Greenwich Hospital. His parents lived here and were very involved with the community. Maybe some of you remember his mother, Barbara McWigan, who was the chair of the Board of Ed. I'm a newcomer, and there are even more newcomers because of COVID. And I think that we can balance it all. I've always told my friends, Peter and I have had the good fortune of living in many beautiful communities, but we always love to come back to Greenwich, and people say, well, what is it about Greenwich? And I say, well, there's something for everyone. We are a beautiful town of over 60,000 people. We have, everybody's interests, whether it's backcountry hiking, boating, going into the city. You don't even have to go into the city. The new Bruce Museum is beautiful, so.
Thank you, Janet. Same question to Lauren.
So a shout out to Peter's mom. Her signature is on Fred and my high school diplomas. I think it's just listening to the needs and having dialogue. We've sort of went backwards a little bit during COVID. We called it social distancing, which was really physical distancing, but there was that social distancing, not being able to talk to people, listen to people. We have neighborhood associations, and I think it's just coming together and just talking about what we want to preserve that people might not be aware of. What are some new opportunities or new services or new entities that folks that are moving in here would like to see? And how do we get to some kind of consensus? I mentioned at our last debate, I am a middle child for 58 years. I'm 3 years older than my sister, so that makes me 61. And I am so accustomed to listening to two sides of anything and not really formulating an opinion and taking the needs of both sides and trying to come to some solution that makes the most people happy. I've lived my whole life that way, and I would continue to do so as your select woman.
Thank you. Up next is Fred.
I would agree. I mean, this is a short one for me. As a proud townie, I love the fact that people move here all the time, and they bring their experiences and their skill sets. They join boards and committees and commissions. When Lauren and I were elected in 2019, we were told that you just didn't have enough people to fill all these boards and committees and commissions. And boy, would that turn out to not be true. We've built a bench for so many of these boards, committees, and commissions, and a lot of them are new people. Some people, within a year, they are volunteering here. And that's the strength of Greenwich, right? The diversity of Greenwich. There's 63,300 people here. I've always, having grown up here, I've seen people come and go, but they always leave a little bit of them here, their legacy, and I learn a lot. I always say, if you listen, you can learn, and if you learn, you can lead. And because of them, we all learn and we all were able to lead because we listened. We listened to a lot of people, and sometimes there's a little bit of conflict, right? I've heard it, well, Freddie, you're listening to these people, they just got here, they don't know what they're talking about. And I get it, in the past I've felt like that sometimes, but the more you work with people, the more you get involved, you realize how much they truly do help us here. And the fact is, they chose to come here, right? I was lucky enough to be born in Greenwich Hospital, and that's a good thing, picking, that they're picking your town to come to. So it makes us stronger.
Great, thanks. There you go.
So I don't think there are competing interests between new residents and longtime residents. I think it all revolves around core community values, and I think we share many of those same values. We support our schools, we support our first responders. We want to enjoy the beautiful amenities our town has to offer, of which there are many. I look at the Parkway School District. I've been here for many past debates when I ran for the Board of Education and when I sat in the audience, and many times we were talking about whether or not Parkway School was a candidate for closure. Well, guess what, people? It is not a candidate for closure. During COVID, you had so many people move to the back country. Right now, according to a local real estate broker who might be in this room, there's less than 6 months of supply of inventory in the back country. There's no preschool at Parkway because there's 250 kids there. We used to put preschool there because we needed to fill the classrooms. Parkway is robust. These young families are bringing energy. You look at any neighborhood in town, there is a mixture. This is what makes our community great. Young, old, intergenerational. The only problem, the true problem, I would say, all these people from Brooklyn have no idea how our local elections work, and it's really hard to explain it to them.
Great. We're on to our last formal question. Reminder, if you have questions, you can submit them to Mark Bruner. Who's standing in the back, he will come pick up the question. And our last question to start with. Sorry. Lauren. Lauren, how do we reduce partisanship in town?
That's a great question. And I'm just going to go back to some of my other answers. I mean, it's through leadership. It's through leadership. It's not. I'm seeing some people in the audience with, like, if you could see some of the expressions on your faces, it's quite interesting. It's really like treating others like human beings and listening to other people's point of view. And just because their point of view is different than yours doesn't make them wrong, doesn't make them stupid, doesn't make them a racist, doesn't make them a child hater. And coming together and just listen to one another and try to find that common ground. We keep talking about community values. We all love living here. Why else would we live here? Why did we move here? Why did we stay here? Why did we raise our children here? Why do I hope my grandchildren are going to come here someday? I think it's just leading with civil discourse, a high moral compass, let go of the ego, find something that brings you together and that you're willing to fight for. And I think all of us could fight for this town and keeping it thriving and keeping it moving forward.
Thank you. Next up is Laura. How do we reduce partisanship in town?
This should be easy, but I have to tell you, I don't think we're living in normal times. The way we reduce partisanship in our town government is to look at our needs, identify our problems, talk about solutions, take politics out of it and look at the facts. To be honest, one of the problems we're having now is not everyone is using the same factual information. I believe that's a real problem. There's a lot of rhetoric on both sides. Some of it is a reaction to the other side, and it's sort of an escalating problem. What we need to do is focus on our local problems. We have good people in our town government. We have a wonderful community. We need to mutually respect one another, listen to one another. But at the end of the day, we have to stop talking and start acting, because that's what residents expect. We need to be adults in the room. We need to be careful the information that we're listening to on television and our sources, so we're not all in the same echo chamber. Everyone has a point of view, everyone needs to be respected, but our residents know what they want. They come out in droves, every public hearing. And with respect, right now, we do not have excellent school infrastructure. We've been hearing about it from parents. We've had schools that have been condemned. We've had students that have to relocate on a moment's notice at Central Middle School. Central Middle School is, I'm out of time. Thank you.
How can we reduce partisanship in town for Janet?
So I'm going to acknowledge what you all can see, that I'm referring to my notes. I love my notes. I've already said, I'm not a politician, I'm a servant leader. This question was not a hard one to anticipate because partisanship is on everybody's minds. And every candidate here is going to tell you that we're committed to civil discourse and collaboration. I think that that's true. I'm going to assure you that Laura and I walk the walk as well as talk the talk. We run on a record of being independent thinkers. No one likes criticism. I don't like criticism, but when I'm criticized, hopefully just lightly, in equal measure from both sides, I know I'm doing my job right. But in recent years, the politicization of elected bodies that historically were bipartisan or nonpartisan is really distressing. And Laura and I will not be pressured by extremist groups. We will always serve the interests of Greenwich over those of party, and we will hold all office holders and political parties to this same standard. I came to this office from volunteer leadership with local nonpartisan nonprofits, and I am a policy wonk. Policy over politics is my guiding principle.
Thank you.
A few months ago, I signed a civility pledge, and I'm proud to say that in this campaign, my team has never sent out one negative email disparaging my opponent, never trying to tear anybody else down to build myself up, and we're proud of that. When I was in Hartford, and we'll continue that. I've never done that in any of the previous 8 elections races that I've run in. When I was in Hartford, many Democrats saved my bills that I introduced when some of my Republican colleagues were going after them. And you learn pretty quickly that you may disagree on some things, but if you can have forged bonds with people, and they, to this day, they're still great friends. Here in town, when we were elected, the first appointment that I could have made could have gone to a Republican on one of the appeals boards, and I chose Howard Richmond, a Democrat, who was a terrific volunteer. He's unfortunately since moved out of town, but I was proud of that. And I think just walking the walk and talking the talk and all that stuff, actions matter. We could sit here all day long. I think we're all committed to civility, but again, I'm very proud of the fact I have not sent out one thing disparaging my opponent, nor will I do that. And leading by example is the only thing you can do. Talk is great, but actions speak a little bit louder. So, it's the era we live in. It will come back, even around the country. It may take a few years, but it will come back to normal like it did after the 60s.
Thank you. A couple of questions from the audience. One, if I visit friends at Nathaniel Witherall, there's no internet for some of the residents. Cell phone towers need to be built. It's a general question across town. How do you cover cell phone coverage throughout the town?
Let me take it.
Let's start with Laura.
So I hope there's internet at Nathaniel Witherall because we do have wireless network. I think what we're talking about is cell phone coverage, and that is a problem. We do have areas of town that are not covered. Cell phone now is really a public utility, just like the internet is, and it's a life safety issue at Nathaniel Witherall. I know we have other towers in the district. There was discussion of putting one of those monopines at the facility. I think there were some neighbors who objected to that. So we're going to have to probably look at different solutions. I think there were some parents at North Street who, again, moved from Brooklyn. They don't have cell phone service. You need cell phone service in this day and age, and there are other parents who are concerned about potential health and safety risks. So this is an issue that we need to look at. The good news is there's new technology available with 5G. Some of those trees, well, you know, they're obviously artificial. You can get used to them over time, but I think there are other methods and ways to put up cell phone towers to accomplish what we need, which is better service without it being an eyesore for the general community. The other point is we do get money from the carriers for these towers, so it can be a win-win for our community.
Thank you. To Fred, cell phone coverage in town.
Sure, so we've been working, listening to neighbors, and we heard that all along, having volunteered there over the years and visited there a lot there. It is an issue, it's a public safety issue. The monopine, about 130 feet, which they used to refer to them as Frankenpines, they're not, the neighbors came out and they think they got 300 or 400 signatures in about 3 days. But there's still a lot of people there and who wanted that monopine. But everybody who came out against that said we still want better coverage. So they're willing to work together. The good thing is, and I've been telling people on both sides, they've been offering to come to us. They've been offering us other ideas. The smaller units, we are going to ask the consultant to redirect his search and try and get us something a little bit different. The biggest concern was not only the aesthetics of it, but in 40 years that may well be outdated, and will we be locked into that? There was a lot of questions there, so we pulled that back and we're looking in another direction. But it's certainly something that we've pledged to fix there, because again, it's not just for Nathaniel Wither, it's for that whole area. You want the whole. We have 67 square miles here, and there's sometimes I'm coming home from town hall and I lose my coverage on the post road, which is not good. So I know every town has this issue, but we're working on it.
And I think if you're going to Witherall, you probably could get Wi-Fi password. No one should be stuck without cell phone service at a place like Witherall. Lauren.
Thanks. So my mom is at Nathaniel Witherall, and I'm just rest assured there's landlines there. So there is the ability to make a phone call, but I'm not saying that we don't need better cell coverage. And like my colleagues, we did have AT&T and some others come in front of us and talk about the monopine at that location. And we do need to just look at other technologies. I know a lot of the other municipalities, as the liaison to the Western Council of Governments, are looking into 5G and just really expanding their 5G network and the little canisters for 5G. Because it's not just at Nathaniel Witherall. I'm laughing because I remember I had to walk from Old Greenwich to the Post Road in Riverside near Staples just to get cell service to ask my husband to come pick me up one day. So where we can get more acceptable and also quality technology, I think we're all in agreement that that's what we want to pursue. But I did want to say they do have landlines in every room.
Great. Jen.
So I'm going to approach this question from a slightly different angle, which is, yes, we need better coverage. That is absolutely clear. I don't have all the answers, but I shouldn't have all the answers necessarily. In my 2 years as select person, I've attended every public neighborhood association meeting, and I listen. I'm often teased because of my insistence on 2 reads of an item before we take a vote. But that's the best way to ensure that there's public awareness and time for public feedback. And this is the way, this very topic that we're talking about, because of keeping this issue going so that the public can come forward, we can generate more options and figure out what the right solution is. And so in this case, I don't know exactly where we're going to land, but like I said, I'm going to be listening.
Thank you. Good. One more question. You touched on it earlier. What are your thoughts on dealing with some of the new large developments like the American Ken building going forward? Up first. It's Fred.
Well, zoning is independent of the Office of First Selectman, but you are an advocate, and you certainly have a voice there. Again, the more units you build, the harder it is to reach that 10% affordable housing mandate. So I would love to see, somebody came to me the other day talking about bringing a minor league baseball team here, and that's the area I zeroed in on. There's 48 acres, and it would make sense, but certainly, I worry about that, just what it does to the infrastructure and what it does to our efforts to get to the 10% so we can take the hammer away from a developer looking to circumvent local zoning. But we have to pay attention. We have to check the docket of planning and zoning. We have to advocate. We have to do our research. And I know the Housing Trust, which again we got passed a couple of years ago, which was tried the first time in 1988 and was rejected by the RTM then, but it was passed this time. And it's a tool. It's a helpful tool. It's not Greenwich Communities, but it's a helpful tool. And they're looking at, possibly if something's built there, getting in lieu of, getting some money in lieu that could be put towards the affordable housing, which helps us a little bit in that goal to get to 10%. But again, you're still going to have units there. What developers are due, and I've testified both here and in New York against developments on our border, they'll ask for, this, knowing full well this is what they want, right? And then when they get, like the Terry Lodge, they asked for 9 stories. We knew they were going to sell for 6. And they were going back and forth, and they ended up with 6. So thanks.
Up next is Lauren. Lauren.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, it would be great. I think the developers come because of the 830G, and they're just having that opportunity to try to develop it for residential when it was a commercial building. And then we do have to think about all of our commercial spaces with people still working from home. The workforce isn't necessarily back in our commercial spaces, but how could they be repurposed? If we could get to some better way of limiting the development for residential, like think of Stanford Town Center, because who's going to malls anymore, right? We all get our Amazon boxes. They put in pickleball courts. So wouldn't that be like a really great thing for the American Can building, some pickleball courts? Something that, we as a community would really appreciate. But how do we encourage the developers to, make money off of that type of conversion, as opposed to what they can do, coming in with the 830G on the books. But I would love to see something other than residential there.
Got it. Thank you. Laura.
So I actually think this is an interesting question, because let's look at it from an economic perspective. We have too much demand and too little supply, which is part of the reason why our rents are skyrocketing, people are feeling pressure. Many seniors are being priced out of their homes. They're very concerned. We have a lot of young families that can't afford to live here. So I think building more housing in and of itself to solve the need is a good thing. I actually think that parcel located where it is, you have to drive out of Greenwich to get to it, even though it is in Greenwich, would affect the neighboring community of Greenwich, not so much Greenwich. And I do think this is an example of a success story with the Affordable Housing Trust, which has already reduced it from 460 units to like 260 units, in that ballpark. It's a community type of, a proposed community type of situation where there's some townhomes and some other buildings. So I think it could be a win-win, provided that the traffic study and the congestion all works. And also remember, because they're potentially paying a fee to reduce the density, that's $12 million to our Affordable Housing Trust Fund that could be used to provide not just affordable housing, but moderate housing. The median income for a town employee is $90,500, and they can't afford to live here. We need to fix that, and the Affordable Housing Trust Fund gives us that ability.
Yeah, so this is an interesting question, and at this point I'm the last to answer, so I'm going to again try to be a little bit more 10,000 feet. This community, we're trying to balance so many things that we need. We need open space, we need playing fields, we need more housing. We don't do a very good job, like I said, getting at the 10,000 foot level and kind of planning. And today we were interviewing someone for the Planning and Zoning Review Board, and he said, it would be helpful if we had more senior planners in town. who could help us with this question and just think more strategically, long-term. Absolutely. I mean, specifically when we're looking at this particular parcel, there's some challenges with it. And yes, planning and zoning is not underneath the auspices of the Board of Selectmen, but we do have to think about these things. And we can definitely think about our town departments and how we can support them better and how they can help us with planning exercises and visioning exercises.
Thank you. Time for further comments. You guys each have 2.5 minutes, and I will pick randomly one last time. First up, Laura.
Thank you so much to the Round Hill Neighborhood Association and to the audience members. You've been very patient. I'm really privileged to be a candidate in this cycle. We were all elected in 2019, and who would have thought when we were elected that what would have faced us the following year? I think we've weathered some real challenges and we've come through stronger, but I think we have challenges that face us. And I'm sitting in my 4th year on the BET. I've seen a lot. I've been very frustrated. I think we need better planning. We need better execution. I think that will save us money in the long run. Things are going well on Greenwich Avenue. There's vibrancy, but when I am out talking to people, a lot of people tell me we don't go to Greenwich Avenue anymore. It's too congested, it's too difficult to find parking. People like the outdoor dining that was necessary during COVID. I think that's here to stay. I think that's an improvement, but I think we need to look at what's working, what's not working. I think we're underpricing the value of that space. That's very expensive real estate, and I think retailers have told us they're suffering because people can't find parking, they can't go in and do their normal errands. We have the Ubers and the DoorDash people that are parking illegally. We have enforcement issues. So I think there are things that need to be addressed. I think we have issues with our schools. We can do more than one school building at a time. In fact, we're required to we need to do it because we have issues at Oak Greenwich School. It's not ADA compliant, it doesn't have a secure entrance. When it floods or there are high tides, we have backups in toilets. It's unacceptable in this day and age, and this is Greenwich. People pay a lot of money to live in our town. We expect a certain level of investment. We expect our assets to be maintained and kept up. There are a lot of neighboring communities who are investing in their schools. They are investing in their playing fields. And my son has a newly married couple who just bought a house in Darien. They looked here, but they ended up buying it in Darien. So we just need to be mindful that Greenwich is a brand, and like any good brand, we need to invest in it to keep its value.
Thank you. Up next is Lori.
Thank you. So thanks, Round Hill Association. Thank you, Brendan, for being our moderator, and to everyone who submitted questions. I just want to reiterate again, it is my honor to serve the community that I grew up with my classmate, running mate, teammate, Fred. When we came into office in 2019, there were so many things that we were faced with and just really weathered through. We faced the pandemic, we faced the flooding, we faced all kinds of challenges, and just really worked as a team to make sure that we were doing the best for our community. We're listening, we're learning, we're out in the public. You can't go anywhere in this town without someone saying, "Hey Fred, hey pal, hey buddy," and just talking and having him understand and have his finger on the pulse of what's going on in this very large, very diverse community, and just putting heart and soul into making it better for everyone. So it's my honor to serve. It's my honor to represent the western end of town. I am the only person on the dais that has been residing on the western end of town for the past 32 years, and bringing that perspective. The western end of town has its own unique challenges, And I want to continue to represent the voice of that part of the community, as well as continue to listen. I'm not saying that I only am working for the western end of town, but just bringing that perspective to serving another 2 years. And I thank you.
Next is Janet.
So I'd like to thank everyone from the Round Hill Association for hosting tonight's debate. As always, I'd like to thank my family and, of course, my fellow candidates, especially my running mate, Laura Erickson. Greenwich would be so fortunate to have her as its first select person. So every candidate here tonight will tell you that we have our town's best interests at heart, and I know that that's sincere, but we have very different visions and ideas about how to achieve them. I've already told you ours, but it's worth repeating that Laura and I want safe roads, secure schools, sensible development, and sound waters. We will support a climate resiliency plan, energy management plan, and do everything in our power to support our school building committees. We will be thoughtful about public engagement and make our decision process transparent. And most importantly, we will serve the needs of our youngest and oldest residents, everyone in between, and at every income level. We will uphold the inclusive values of this community. We believe Greenwich is worthy of this vision and our personal investment in our town. It has been an honor and privilege serving as your select person. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Janet. Next up is Fred.
Thank you, Brenda. I want to thank the Round Hill Association and Brendan tonight, and Hunter, and everybody here, and my colleagues, and the best deputy mayor in the state of Connecticut, Lauren Rabin, who, despite those foolish signs that popped up around town, were saying, I wouldn't trade her for any governor or US senator in the country. The last few weeks, people are interviewing all of us, and they say, well, Freddie, why are you running for re-election? I say, well, because I love the job and I love the town I grew up in, but it's only part of it. It's part of my lifelong commitment to this town. I have volunteered here my whole adult life. I've served on boards, committees, and task forces, chairing many of them. I've served on the RTM. I have served as 11 years as a state representative. But I'm really proud about the last 4 years. Greenwich is thriving, and while we strive to do much better, we are #1 on a lot of things. We have the lowest, except for that one tiny town, the lowest mill rate in the state. We are the safest town in the state. We are one of 15 towns that have, out of 169, that have a AAA credit rating. We are the first age-friendly designation in the state. We are the first dementia-friendly designation in the state. But we're still not satisfied. We want to be #1 in everything. And, well, you continue to work at that. The only way to do that is, again, to listen, learn, and lead. And going forward, you have a record, but you also have your vision, right? Coach Parcell says you are what your record says you are, and we're proud of our record on all fronts. But you have to have a vision, too, going forward. And we're going to look at underutilized assets like the Havemeyer building. We're going to continue to work on parking, taking 200 meter feeders off the avenue to the municipal lots on the side. We still have a long way to go. I'm meeting with the property owners and the residents and parking services almost daily on that. There's lots of things to do, but at the end of the day, we are a good team. The town is in great shape, and it has been an honor of my lifetime to serve you all. I couldn't have done it without all of you. Like Lauren and I are just thrilled to be in a position to serve you all. So again, for the honor of a lifetime, thank you so much. And I respectfully and humbly ask for our support, Lauren and I, on November 7th to continue the work that we began on December 1st, 2019. God bless you all.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Janet. Thank you, everybody, for attending. If you're not a member of the Round Hill Association, please feel free to join us tonight. Sign up for our email newsletter, and thank you all for attending. Take care.